everybody. Hi, Elizabeth. I'm
Hi,
Victoria,
Victoria.
and we are here together today to touch base about Jubilee Zinevella, which is a project I've been working on, and Elizabeth is involved as a recipient and engager of the work. Jubilee Zinevella is a story I started working on in 2018, set in a future fictional version of Burning Man 2020. It's about a quest and about the Jubilee movement, which is a fictional movement towards forgiveness of debts and erasure of hoards. And it's manifested in the form of a zinevella, which is like a novella in a zine form, self-published, and I customized copies of it and sent them out to artists and friends I respect and admire, one of whom is Elizabeth. And we'll talk through a little bit more of the project and what it means and its reverberations right now. Does that sound good? Okay.
Yes.
So, Elizabeth Lamb, do you want to tell me a little bit about yourself and tell us what you want to know about you and your context right now?
Sure. I'm in Brooklyn, New York right now. I'm in my apartment. It's my bedroom. I've been living here at 10 Midwood Street off of Flatbush for 7 years. I moved here in 2011 from Oregon, which is where I grew up and where our paths crossed. But then our paths crossed again here in New York. When I moved here, you were living here. And when I moved to New York, I was interested in learning how art spaces worked and how artists made work here and how organizations funded projects and supported artists. So I am now working at a gallery, and it's amazing and beautiful and supports incredible artists. The gallery is called Company Gallery. Yeah, shout out. Yeah, so that's me. I have a really cute dog named Lucy, and I have a very sweet partner named April. And I have this amazing, I am participating in this project as a caretaker for one of these beautiful zinevellas. And I got this last year. I think this is edition 2.
I think it might be the first edition.
It's August 2019.
Yeah, so that's the first. So yeah, it took me that long to get it from its origins to its first printing. So yeah, it's the first edition.
Yeah. Other things that are going on, it is humid here, and it's 8:04 on a Saturday. Full moons in 3 days, or is it 4 days? It's on Wednesday, and it's Saturday right now. I did a tarot card reading today that was really nice, and I spent time reading Adrienne Marie Brown's Emergent Strategies book today. I went on a really nice walk in Prospect Park and spent time at one of my favorite places, the Vale of Cashmere, which is totally overgrown and beautiful, and I saw 2 hummingbirds. And yeah, so that's what this day looks like.
Where's the Cashmere Vale in the park?
So it's a place that is kind of hidden in the park. It's sort of a sunken space, but it feels very much like a secret garden. It has this bricked walkway around like this kind of swampy, watery space where like there's a little island and a giant there's several like weeping willows that are also cherry blossoms, and they bloom and all different types of foliage, and kind of these like sort of like antiquity, like Greco-Roman kind of pillars around the space. So it has this like feeling of like antiquity, secret garden. It also has a history for being one of the more popular like cruising sites in the park and in Brooklyn. So you can just, there's a real strong presence in the space. And I love it there. It feels very magical.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
You have a good eye for magic, I think, so to speak. Whatever the sense that senses magic is, you have a good one of those.
Maybe a witch hymn.
Ooh.
Is the title of my book.
You know,
that I'm in possession of.
I chose that one for you in particular.
Yeah, a lot of intention in the project, which I really appreciate.
It's both intention and also just like harnessing whims. You know what I mean? Just kind of like,
also whimsy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing if not whimsical.
Yeah, definitely. Burning Man.
Yeah. Yeah, which is kind of where we met, right?
It is. I feel like I met you in your RV.
That might be true.
I feel like it was an afternoon, and I feel like I met you in your camp at least, if not in your RV. But I feel like one of my more like formidable moments of being aware of your presence was like in your RV, and I feel like you were at one end, and I feel like I got there with Brian's older brother, who you were staying with. Right? What's Brian's older brother's name? Brian Miller's older brother?
I'm not sure.
Is it Chad Miller?
I don't. The people I was staying with a guy named Ben, and
maybe it wasn't his RV, but maybe he was just going in there because there was a volcano situation. I think that's why I got there.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I remember you on the couch at Shwaretown.
Yeah,
like dappled.
I was in residence.
Shwaretown in residence. But I also like knowing you just as a like Gaia tribe matriarch, at least.
Descendant.
Like, yes, you're just like part of the like house music collective in Eugene that would throw raves in the like mid OOs that I would go to.
That's how I remember you from then on, was like attending parties and then you being there and always knowing you as like another amazing, familiar, beautiful face that I enjoyed spending time with.
Yeah, it was good. There's a lot of trust involved in that circle, it seemed like. And I was lucky enough to kind of be welcomed into the circles. Because you guys all seem like we've known each other forever.
Well, we had like various pockets of like that tree that started out from a really early age, and there was like cross section. So like Joshua was very much like one of my earlier connections, and also Dave and also Jesse. All of us knew each other basically since middle school.
Wow.
And like developed like close friendships through that awkward age, through our youth group actually. In Eugene. Yeah. So Joshua's mom was our youth minister, and I went with Bethany, and it was, I guess the tenets were more around community than they were around religion and stuff.
Which church was it?
It was First Christian Church. It was I think it was on Oak Street. It was the large church that had a bell tower and a big dome. And when you're in the main sanctuary, the dome was built as such where you could hear somebody who's completely across the space, like they were right next to you, the way that it echoed from the ceiling and then down again.
Good old acoustics.
Yeah. We had a lot of fun there. We were mega nerds. Then we would hang out in Jay Lee's garage where he had set up like a little house music heaven. And we'd sit in the black light and play with the beads that have been out of bean bags put into a tub and just like the tactility of that. Play with that while listening to house music, while looking at like black light posters and being dork. Smoking a lot of weed.
The 90s.
It was great. It was really a beautiful like time and youth, and yeah, it was fun.
Yay.
Yeah.
Your days of yore.
My days of yore, which then brought me to Burning Man.
Yeah,
I think it was 4 consecutive years, thinking back on it. Yeah.
When did you start? Do you remember what the first year was?
I don't really remember. I remember I went to, I always like timelines are fuzzy. And I don't know if it's because of Burning Man or just me.
It's hard these days. I'm having a much harder time.
Yeah. But I remember my last year, I think, being the year that I went into graduate school. I was starting school that fall. And so I think I graduated college and like undergrad in 2002, college in 2006. So I think it was 2006. So I think it was like 2003, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 2003 to 2006.
Nice.
Yeah.
I went 05, 06, 08.
Nice. Yes. So we must have met in 05.
Yeah, probably. My strong memories of you are from 06, I think. Because 05 we were kind of off the grid a little bit more. But 06 I felt like I knew you guys a little bit. Or like knew Shoretown a little harder.
Yeah.
So you showed me your copy of Jubilee Zinevella. Do you want to describe it like as for someone who's sight impaired?
Yeah, so this object has a series of photocopied pages on the inside that's folded over a metal rod that's thin and is capped with 2 ends and has like this sort of like shoehorn metal loop at the end that's hard, that on both sides, that hold on to a threaded cable wire that's also looped and crimped. All of the hardware fixtures are like really cleanly designed and aesthetically like really well like made, but also like aesthetically very sharp. And then around the threaded wire is like it's almost like a plastic lanyard that's been wrapped around like very, very tightly around the whole wire. And then there are little small like loops where it has been wrapped around different candy raver beads have been threaded on. And candy raver beads are plastic beads that are about 1/4 inch wide in diameter and are clear typically, or they can be opaque and are brightly colored. And they can be different objects too, like hearts or stars or little baby pacifiers. Some of them are like opaque squares and they have images of like flowers and like graphic flowers, like almost like emojis or hearts. And then further down the braided lanyard, which is light blue and white, are a series of different dice or like square cube shaped beads that spell out the word witch hymn. And then beyond the like handle or braided wire, around the photocopied pages of paper that are folded around that wire is basically a butterfly style piece of fabric, but it doesn't have two sets of wings, just has one. So it's like a giant oval that's folded in half. And it's a really sheer white fabric that is like crinkly. And then on the side that's covering the Xerox copy of the paper, it has a hem, almost like if it were like a curtain or something, like a cut curtain where there would be a rod between, like a pocket made for the rod. And then sewed onto that is a piece of fabric that's blue, and it is like a corduroy print, but part of the print is taken away. So I know that this fabric style has a name, but I forget what it is. So it's kind of like an abstract pattern that's made by the negative space of the corduroy not being present. And then sewed onto all the sewing on the fabric is done with like a black yarn. So it's not a thin thread. It's like a very visible black yarn, almost like if a Sharpie were on the fabric, so creating a line. And in the middle is like a very, very fuzzy set of like tendrily fibers that almost look like a Santa's beard or something, kind of clumped onto. And as I'm like touching it, I'm like, oh, okay, don't touch it so much because it's very. So I think I froze. There we go. It's like clumped on in a way that almost feels like a little fragile. Like I shouldn't touch it that much or else the clumps might come out. And then at the end of the fabric where the kind of pull loop pocket would be is like a series of beads that have been threaded on, and they're blue and iridescent circles, and then little triangles, iridescent, and a pink dice that's clear pink, and a clear Candy Raver Passy that's green.
Yay!
That's it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel thoroughly just understood. I understand that. Yay! Hey, have you read the story?
I have not read all of it. I've read the beginning of it. I really love it. I guess the way that I've interacted with this mostly is as an object, like a sculptural object, that I have installed in my bedroom. So I have it suspended on I don't know, it's like a modern deco like lamp that's mounted on the wall, and it's pink, and it has a red light. Sorry?
Can you show me the light fixture?
Yeah, we're gonna go on a little tour 1 second. Do you want to see how I have it installed? Like, can I show you how it hangs on?
Yes, I would love that.
Okay, 1 second. I'm gonna set it up and then I'll get you.
Okay. Ooh, I'm excited.
And I'm gonna turn off the big light because it really ruins the effect.
Okay.
That's
ooh, nice. Amongst many cherished things. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I very much live with it and look at it every day.
Oh, do you want to grab it and so you can
Yeah, I got it.
randomly choose a passage from it?
Is this light okay, or should I turn big light back on?
I think you look fabulous.
Okay, we'll do not big light.
Okay.
I'm gonna move this.
Some mood lighting.
Yeah. Me and my natural habitat.
Yes.
This was like all of quarantine time. This is my world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you stayed home pretty well then?
Yeah, I definitely work from home. I guess that's one of my like main sort of points of curiosity too, in reading the first like section. Knowing that this is placed in 2020 and knowing that you wrote it before this year. I mean, I think we were all like, oh yeah, 2020, like numerologically, like that's interesting. It's a new decade.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the roaring 20s, we're back at it or whatever. But like none of us knew we would be here. So yeah, I mean, I guess the way I've seen this time is very much like the rule books are out, or at least like I hope so, and like let's make this what we want it to be, and like exist in the world the way that we want it to be. But I'm very curious, like after writing a like science fictional future, how you feel about your relationship with your projection or vision and where we're at now.
Yeah. It's been weird. Like, yeah, because like I think in writing it, it was more like a kind of escapism for me in terms of like both like kind of like, you know, like a vision board or something like that. Like I feel like I was kind of trying to do some kind of visioning both for like the way the world would be and the way that my life would be. I don't know. Being a single mom who like moved back home to Boring, Oregon kind of abruptly in 2015. I guess it was kind of my way of going somewhere else, like it was something I would do after I put my kid to bed and before I went to bed, was kind of just go to this place and build this world. And so in the writing of the story, that it was more of like a both kind of like trying to like give myself what I didn't have, and also try and do the same for the world at large, I guess. But yeah, it's been really weird, like, like as the future has caught up to me and seeing how different it is in some ways, but also how similar it is in others, like the dystopian, like the world feels so sci-fi right now, but it's like, it's not not what I wrote. But it's interesting in writing too in general because you can write anything, you know what I mean? And like you can make, I don't know, I had a boyfriend who one time he was a director. Jordan, did you ever meet Jordan? But he was like, I just remember one time when he was like, you can just make them kiss, and like you really are only bound by your own like ethics and imagination in terms of like what you write and like how grounded it is in the actual reality. And so it was interesting to me to see in what ways like I kind of did ground it in my reality, but also like what kinds of things I made up. But does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Do you, knowing what you know now of living in 2020 and thinking about the sort of future dystopic or sci-fi place that you could go from here, do you think your vision of Jubilee, like you would still go there, like a version of it, or do you think that it might change?
Well, I think, yeah, right now I would be down to like be there, like resisting Elon Musk. Because like, I don't know, he's the book, the story kind of operates in this kind of like fan fiction style in which I include famous people or the names of famous people and also actual people that I know as kind of synecdoches is what I call them, as kind of a a reference point for everyone who's reading it. Like it's usually either like people who I personally know, or else like people who are like very widely known, are the characters in the story, as well as some like made up characters too. But like in terms of like the main like undercurrent of the Jubilee movement that I wrote into the story, that's about forgiveness, like kind of a leveling, like we need to kind of like reset the, so Jubilee is like a concept that comes from like Christianity, I guess, like popes, like Catholicism, like popes would have a year of Jubilee every, I think it was like 7 years back then, where everybody would kind of be forgiven their debts. I'm not sure what they did about accumulated wealth. I don't think that they erased that in the same way that I would want to with this case, but like, so the Jubilee movement in the story, and I guess in my heart, is about like a reset button to push towards like financial like debts and hoards, which I think is, you know, now even more important than it was 2 years ago. I don't know, like the billionaires have made what, like $1 trillion over the course of the pandemic, just by like consolidating wealth and like taking advantage of people, and you know, from various angles. So it seems even more important now than
Definitely.
before.
Like
So
the
I would,
redistribution.
yeah, you know, but like at a very like not this like window dressing shit, you know what I mean? Like actually like get to the heart of it and just be like, no, like off with their bank accounts or whatever, you know?
That'd be
I
amazing.
don't need to kill Jeff Bezos, but I would like to like bring him
Empty his
down
bank
to our
account.
level. Well, you know, just like bring like, or like when they were writing stimulus checks for everybody, they should have just wrote us all like a $12 billion stimulus check, so we could all be on the same level, you know? I don't know. It's just cartoonishly oversized, and like Elon Musk is just really leaning into the supervillain thing. So I don't know. He needs some serious check on himself, and I don't think Grimes is going to do it, unfortunately.
No,
But
and quarantine isn't going to either.
no, he's just like really like doubling down on the megalomaniac stuff, which is not good for anybody.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting time. I mean, at the beginning of it, I had a friend say like, we're like, this is, you know, this is awful, but it is the beginning of a revolution. Like, it's going to be really, really hard, and it's going to be terrible, but people are going to be angry, and they're going to be hungry, and they're going to have time on their hands, and
Right.
we're
Absolutely.
going to see like actual real change happen. And at that time it was April, and I was like, oh my god, I don't know, I'm so scared. And then started seeing it in the movements, and like really seeing it and being like, oh wow, more people are actually paying attention,
Right.
and this is getting bigger for the first time on this scale.
Right. It's just
So
people are digging in their heels in ways that are really disgusting. So I don't know.
yeah.
I mean, and
So
it's
that's
fine if you want to be
exciting.
like a grumpy, selfish person. That's fine, but you don't get to just like sit on a pile of gold like a fucking dragon at the same time. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really hard not to be in this. It's like I'm finding it very difficult. I mean, we're kind of digressing, but I'm finding it really difficult not to acknowledge like where we're at with everything, and everything that we're doing, because it's just so extreme from every single angle, and there's so much pressure at this point from all different parts. It's
What
just
is
a
it been
really
like in your world? Like
well, I
our
mean,
world?
going into the fall means like a reopening, like metaphorically, for many different types of ways of operating in our social system. That's like, you know, most kind of froze a little bit again. Like that calendar schedule is mostly like reproduced through the academic institution, which I feel like is a very interesting case study for this whole experience. This like drive to reopen. But then also it's within like, you know, the commercial systems as well. It's very much like a September is a reopening because summer is typically everybody takes a break. For the most part, people don't spend money for the most part in the summer. They like vacation, and it's very much about restorative, like, you know, whatever that means. But it's very much about recreation. It's like your leisure time. But then fall means like, it's like, okay, you have people's attention again, and it's time to like build program. It's time to like put content out. It's time to create content just to So yeah. I think what is interesting too is I'm seeing it as like this tightrope, right? We're like walking a tightrope that is between the space of a hybrid. Like, how do we like still acknowledge we're in a place that's unprecedented, and how do we function in this place, understanding that it's like we're really considering people's safety when we're asking them to function as status quo, while also still asking them to function as it were status quo. So like, what does that look like? What does that dance look like? How are you redefining the rules? How comfortable are you? Where is consent? Like, it's
Yeah, when I think about the whole like 6 feet distance thing, I'm like, you know, this is probably actually really good for a lot of women, you know, to have to like mandate to stay away from me.
But then where that can actually be in compliance, like a lot of things say 6 feet, but like, for instance, you know, you get a ticket to go upstate on a bus, and supposedly they're only selling half of the bus, but then the whole bus is sold. Or you get on the subway and there's signs that say this many feet apart, and or a bus somewhere, and there's really not room to be 6 feet apart at all. So
how is it working on the subways?
I mean, in July, when I started going on the subway, it was in July, and it was phase 2, and that was like, I'm not talking about the zine at all, but I guess we're talking about it because it's now, and it's 2020 in the zine. It's 2020 now. So, but yeah, it was actually a very emotional day because unexpectedly, it caught me off guard, like realizing that it had been since March that I had gone into the city, or that I had taken the train. It froze again. It had been since March that I had gone into the city or taken a train, and that was the longest it's ever been ever since I started living here. And just that realization and how much had changed, and how time has just like, that's another thing I want to talk to you about, time with this project. But how time has just like totally morphed in on itself in these really like sci-fi ways of, you know, all of a sudden it's spring and you're watching the trees change, but you feel like it's been the same day for 3 months.
And like some weeks go by like that, and then some take like 5 times as long.
So yeah, to answer your question, they're more crowded now. So
more?
Yeah. I mean, not as crowded as it was before pandemic.
Okay.
But
all right.
No, it's not like that. But it's getting more. Before, it was, you could find 3 seats between people, or something that felt in compliance with 6 feet.
A lot of telework and stuff like that.
Yeah, now it's like there are times where that's not possible, and in those moments you feel very claustrophobic because you're like, oh god, I can't, where do I go, and do I stand in the middle, and I don't want to get off, and then you just stop, and then all these people come in, and there's nowhere for them to go that's 6 feet, and you're like, I have to go to my destination, and you just really feel compromised. Anxiety feelings. You either have to say, am I going to have a panic attack, or am I just going to like be chill and hope everything's okay?
Breathe through it.
Yeah, definitely wear a mask and try to go around people that are also wearing masks, because sometimes they aren't. Or love wearing the mask, they'll know their chin.
Like yes, mask saggers.
Yeah.
Do you
But
have lots of
anyway,
cute ones? Do you have any like artistic cute masks? Or do you
I've
wear like
sort
pretty?
of discovered that recently,
Mhm.
because I had some cute masks. I actually had masks before all of this. In December, I bought masks. I was sitting on a plane going down to Miami for the fair,
Mhm.
and I was sitting, it was like packed, and I always travel and you get sick. And I was like,
Mhm.
we were waiting on the tarmac, and I just felt really germophobic. And I was like, fuck it. I'm buying one of those K-pop face masks to wear on
Mhm.
my flight to Christmas because we were going to Nebraska.
Mhm.
And I went on Amazon and I like searched K-pop mask, and I found one. I ordered it, and we wore K-pop masks to Christmas. My mom's like, "You look so weird." I was like, "Whatever." I
Little
feel
did you
cool.
know.
Exactly. So March hit. I was like, "Okay, didn't see that one coming, but prepared and happy about it." So I had
Right?
like, cute, like, bear teeth or whatever, or like a
Mhm.
little like piggy or like kitty or whatever. Anyway, then we got some pink ones, and
Mhm.
then I forget what else we got. But anyway, very recently, newsflash, I'm like, why is everybody wearing those medical blue ones?
Mhm.
And I was like, because they're not cute.
Mm-mm.
And then I put one on, and I was like, oh, because you can breathe.
Oh,
And this
yeah.
humidity and this heat, oh my God, the acne and the awfulness of it, like,
Yeah.
mask
And
me.
that's
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
Yeah. I learned that term recently, but
Yeah.
I was like, oh, so now I've gotten some cute black medical masks from,
Oh, nice.
yeah,
Classic.
Chinatown Special.
New York.
Um,
Have you been to
yeah,
Magic
yeah,
Jewelry? Speaking of Chinatown.
not recently. They upped their prices like a lot before all of this.
Yeah, I can
I think
imagine.
yeah, I mean, and it was constantly every because it's close to when my subway stops.
Mhm.
Um, so when I would take that train, usually I take the B, but when I would take the Q and walk to Canal,
Mhm.
I would always like on a whim, if I was like feeling, I was like, maybe I'll just go get my Aura Red. And
Mhm.
then I look, and it's like 6 people waiting to get their Aura Red,
Right.
and they're all, it's not a big place,
Mm-mm.
and I think it's like now $40 when I think it
Instead of
started out
20.
being like 15, yeah.
Yeah, I think by the time
15
I
and
went,
now
it was
20.
19 or something. But
Yeah, and then it got to 25, and now it's really expensive. But I have a really good collection and a lot of good memories.
yes, and a beautiful aura.
Yes, and I've worked actively on moving it from different chakra points,
Right.
and was able to. I was able
To
to
get it
get.
red.
I got from because I was always pink, really,
Right.
really, really pink
Purple,
and
ethereal.
purple,
Mhm.
very like up here spaces,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
really wanted to get all the way to red root chakra, and I got to
Mhm.
yellow orange. Never made it to red, but I got to yellow
Yeah,
orange. So
maybe
the soul plex.
there's still time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? It could be red now.
Yeah.
But
It's at least pink.
it's
A
definitely pink
dark
right though.
pink.
Yeah. But
Um,
let's talk about your project.
yeah. Do you want to can you tell my fortune? Can you grab your copy and read a
Yeah.
random sentence?
Yes, I can. All right. Are you feeling okay? First, before I tell your fortune, I want to like set some like feeling towards it. Like,
Oh,
are you feeling in a like wanting to access like past energy, very present energy, or like future forward?
present.
Okay, I love that because it is the past and the future all at the same time.
Right?
All right. Find and replace. You find and you replace. And in that, you see what changes. Small worlds only. Did you say worlds? Or do you say words or worlds? You are getting very sleepy again and again. This is an exaggerated hip, hypnotic tone, of course. They set the mic flat down on the salt flats and lay down around it. exaggerated cat's curl, sleeping kitty curl.
Thank you. Maybe that is you in the story. It's somebody reading second person poetry, you to you, wearing a corduroy bikini, I think.
This person's wearing a corduroy bikini.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my zinevella has corduroy on it. I do love corduroy. Do you know what color it is? Do you remember?
It's earth tones, sand tones in the story.
That's perfect. When she woke up, the sky was pink, dusty or maybe foggy, blurry air catching the pink light. Later on, she feels so stunned by something she thinks she might be dead, like inhabiting the afterlife. In the pink fog, she drops a pen. She drops many pens, connect the dots to make the shape of a face.
Keep reading. Keep reading.
Like those runners who choose routes to trace shapes on their running maps. A face traced by thin lines like Carrie Altman's large paintings at the opening exhibition of American Medium in Midtown 2011 or something. She remembered visiting the opening with Elizabeth Lamb. No shit. Back when Eliz was working at a pizza place, hustling and determined, but relatively as yet unsung. She remembered Elizabeth Lamb on the couch at Schwartown in 2006, unsung in other ways, maybe more sung in some, the mesh camo net strung above them, casting leafy shadows. Staging acrobatic group photos with everybody later, maybe that same cycle. In 2006, she was nearby but off-site, the sensual non-pencil stencil station. Colin fishing in the RV toilet for the vial of acid they had ditched during the cop raid their first night there. They had forgotten to hang the modesty curtain across the windshield before hitting the bong. I see it, he said, gleaming eye, but he couldn't catch it, couldn't lift the vial, repurpose sweet breath from the depths. She wove the strings of her life around these little pens, little memories. She sat in the pink fog and watched people pass by on their trajectories, their lines of flight, their own quest maybe. Some outlandish art car shaped like koosh balls far away in the pink blur, blasting pure moods. She ate some strawberries and relaced her sandals, remembered eating blueberries from a repurposed square glass Trader Joe's lemon curd jar with Holly Child, leaned up against the outside wall of a 285 Kent. Of 285 Kent. Fade to mind, party maybe. June 2012. Peak hot Butte summer.
Yes.
How to move through the wide and boisterous world, motion soup, the grammar of choices. She lay down on her back in the salt flats, arms wide like an angel, let her eyes close again. When she opened them, she saw she was surrounded by comically oversized stern pigeons staring at her. The sky looked like a ceiling of the Vatican, richly patterned in gold and blue. She felt like she was inside that widely circulated photo, supposedly taken by a person laying down on a cathedral floor, surrounded by concerned pigeons. She led her senses towards trying to understand how this picture was surrounding her now. She closed her eyes tight and reopened them, the way she would do when caught in a tense dream in her childhood, how it would open her sleeping eyes so that she could find herself in her bed safe.
You found yourself in there.
That's amazing. I know, like I literally just opened it in the middle-ish section. I always think the middle-ish is the present.
There you go. And here you are.
In a pink room.
I had to come inside because my computer was low battery. So, yeah. So, hey,
Definitely.
do you want to
Good
tell me?
memories.
Do you want to? So, you've been to Burning Man.
Hmm.
Do you want to talk about it at all beyond what we already have?
I was looking at your questions and I saw that as one question.
Mhm.
Like, have you been and do you have any memories?
Mhm.
I remember lots of things actually, like more like a lot of feelings, a lot of like images.
Mhm.
I always have this feeling of like, how much is your memory? How much of them are your memories of pictures that you've seen?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, I also like remember. I mean, the first. I don't know if everybody feels this way, but for me, like the first years were some of the best years for me.
Mhm.
Um, the camp that I was participating in was called Schwartown. Um, had been, I think they were trying like more organized in their camping for maybe 1 or 2 years before I attended.
Mhm.
But one of my friends, Dave Deluxe, was pretty like a big seller on the fact that I needed to go. He was
Mhm.
like, the art is so amazing, you're gonna love it. And I was like, okay, cool. So let me check this out. And then when I went with Rachel Grimes, is who I was living with at the time in Corvallis. And
Mhm.
we were really organized in all of our outfits for different days that we made, and had our totes and our checklist of things to bring. And we stayed in these carports that we got from Costco. We had like this
Mhm.
pool fund, and it was, I think we had either 3 or 4 carports and
Mhm.
a couple couches in each carport, but they were kind of set up more like the inside of a peace sign.
Mhm.
Um, hmm
Mhm.
and it was much more modest. And then the year after that was when it really kind of like exploded into
Mhm.
this hexagon of a
Mhm.
camp where
Mhm.
instead of just like 4 or 3 carports, we had a whole outside perimeter that we
Mhm.
then opened up each of the tarp walls to the
Mhm.
inside and uh, um, created a canopy of camo netting
Mhm.
and had like brought out a bunch of carpets
Right.
and uh, like sourced a bunch of like stray carpets and then like couches that people didn't want, because at that time, like in Oregon, a lot of us had vehicles and you drive around and there'd be a lot of the stuff that you could find on the street that somebody like put outside, and you would have the ability to like pick it up
Right.
because you had a car of some sort.
Scavenge
Yeah.
and
So that
scrounge.
was like a thing. So we got a bunch of those things and then we set it up. So it was much more of like, I think that's when it started getting its name of Schwartown. Um,
Mhm.
so it was fun to be a part of that. I mean, it was also like the first time that I really started doing psychedelics. So like I remember, the first year like eating mushrooms, having them that had been like um they had been marinated in honey. Conrad had marinated a bunch of psilocybin mushrooms in honey in big bell jars, and then we made them on uh, bread, like
Mhm.
white bread,
Right.
and it was basically like a banana, peanut butter, and honey mushroom sandwich, which was delicious actually. It was like one of my favorite sandwiches was like peanut butter and honey, and I don't have it that often, but in that moment it was like, this is everything I want.
Right.
And then
And then some.
went on a bike ride, and it was like the beginning of the week and on our bikes and just like exploring and really loving the idea of how they'd use planets
Mhm.
to demarcate. Well, that I think they used planets my first year because that was a theme. It was something like celestial, but each year the roads shift. There's so many
Mhm.
roads out from the center, which the man is in the middle.
Mhm.
I think that also is an indication of its growth, because when I went, Pluto, which was a planet at that time,
Mhm.
was the last um, ring out.
Right.
So now I think there's many, 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 many more streets out.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine actually.
Right. I can't either. It seems so
Uh,
big back then.
yeah, I mean Pluto was like, that was a lot to remember. Um, I think we were on Earth. I remember being on Earth, and
Good place to be. Good choice.
yeah, and I feel like I forget exactly where, but we weren't too far since it wasn't so that big.
Mm-hmm.
You could get to the center camp pretty quickly, and it was just a beautiful day. It was so much fun, and just like seeing things and people setting things up, and just like this, feeling of possibility, but also like a feeling of risk and feeling of like living on the edge a little bit, and it's a little dangerous because you don't know what you're doing fully, and but also like the bonds of new relationships being built and the trust in those relationships with these like totally goofy, crazy kids. Many of them like I hadn't built close relationships with, like Dylan and Colin and Connor, like that fraction. And Lafa, that whole fraction was like kind of like a subset. Like Drew was sort of in the middle, and like Boss Killer and Dave and Josh were like our kind of home base. And then like Dunham was somewhere in the middle with that too. And so yeah, it was really fun, and it was Rachel and I. Oh, also Chad Benz was like more part of our home base. But yeah, it was fun. And then I started bringing my sister, so that was really special too.
Lauren, yeah, she was there. I remember her being there with you in 06 at least.
I think what I did was I did the first. What was that?
She was like wearing a fedora, I think.
That was the look. It was like Goodwill chic. It was like definitely have a fur jacket that's like a pea coat with like some cool like rabbit fur on the collar. And, but yeah, the first 2 years I went by myself with Rachel, and then the second 2 years I went with Lauren. So yeah, it was fun. It was like I remember learning that sunrise was my favorite time of day, even though I love to sleep in. But how beautiful it is. Yeah, learning the power of a dust storm, learning how much I loved emergency, the like anti support powder, and like I was like, it's my lifeline. It was in many ways. And then like there was a party, like the nighttime party, and like it being that. I mean, the first year, it was the beginning of the week, and I think maybe it had been the first night that we went out. So not very many people had gotten in yet.
Right.
And so like the big parties on that, because the big parties are like Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Right.
So it's just like this tent and like some lights, like all one level. It wasn't like high, or there wasn't like, scaffolding or any kind of situation or fanciness. But it was just like this really good DJ, and we found them on our bike. We just heard the music, and it was great house music. And it was just like maybe 20 people just like dancing, and it was this warm wind. It was because it gets cold at night, so it was all of the heat from the day right after it gets like night, and the heat is still in the air, and you're dancing, and it's blowing this warm air, and you're just dancing to the music. And I remember I was with Rachel, and she was like kind of trying to dance a little bit like club music, and I was like, it's okay. Like actually, you can be a little bit more like hippie groovy with it, and like kind of showed her like a little bit of like how to find the beat and to go with it. And she always says that like night changed her life. She was like, I'm a new person, but it was so much fun. It was so much fun. Just like feeling like completely connected to, I mean, through music, obviously, when you're moving to house music and it's that moment, it's like so ethereal. Like everything just felt like it's like everything's at sync at the same time. And then to be outside in the night air and see the stars and to have that warm wind. And it's just like one of those moments where I was like, yes, I'm here. I will never leave.
Like, here I am.
Yeah. So those were the good times. There was also, some weird times. Like trying to find that moment and never really being able to find it. And then being like, what am I doing? So it was a whole spectrum. I love going to get pancakes in the morning at the free pancake camp. I did love how like and that was towards Center Camp. I loved how, I mean, in the beginning, like the idea of first years I was going, the idea of being, you know, money, you couldn't have any. I keep seeing myself freeze. So I'm not sure if I'm freezing on your end, but
you go black a little bit.
I go back a little bit. The idea that no currency could be out there was very much like a whoa. And then like seeing how people did that. I think that maybe the only thing you could buy was ice. I don't
ice
know.
And coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But bringing things to be able to trade as a substitute for currency. And I have this little matchbox that was one of the trades that I got.
Yeah.
No, I don't think she did make matchboxes because we've met somebody who made matchboxes.
Oh. Yeah, because that year I collaged lighters, and she was like, I made matchboxes, and I was like, I made lighters. And we're like, let's go burn some stuff.
I wonder if I can find it. Anyway, I have it here.
Find it sometime. You don't have to do it now, but you can try if you want.
I'm trying to think. Give me 1 second.
Okay, absolutely.
Okay, I could not find it. But
we'll have to save that.
Yeah,
we'll have to save it for another day.
It says no. I think it says 04 on it.
Okay, I'm imagining it. Did you ever get one of those clue necklaces?
I kind of hated that shit.
I like the necklace. I like the necklace.
I was really connected, I felt, to the Oregon Fair community.
I think probably you're right.
Yeah, and it was very much like a sort of secret society in a way. And everybody thought they were so cool. And I really didn't think the aesthetics of it were that great. And I was kind of like, fuck, you're all a clue necklace. It was different contingencies. I think part of the reason why I didn't like it is because I probably didn't have one too, to be honest.
I never got one myself, but I think Cricket had one.
Yeah, they existed.
Which, now knowing more about everything now, I'm like, of course Cricket had one. But she was Fair family.
Yeah, Fair family runs deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I feel like I was back there with you a little bit.
Thank you.
Are you currently on any quests right now? It's another theme of the story.
Yeah. I think like one of the things that I'm reading a lot in Adrian's book is like this idea of getting in right relationship with things, like especially like environment and in communities and in movement spaces, and this idea of like being in right, and also like yourself. And then so that's like a phrase that keeps going through my mind. But then also another phrase that keeps going through my mind is I think I saw it first from Tourmaline, and I'm not sure if it's been anywhere else but besides her. But this idea of like, if we're thinking about abolishing the police system, you need to also think about abolishing like the police in your heart and like what it means to have like systems and structures and judgments and ethic morals that might be outdated that you're actually projecting in your own life and your own embodiment. That if you're doing that, then you're definitely projecting it out to the world. So it's really an idea of like, okay, so how are you going to work on that? Those are some questions. Yeah.
Kill the cop
like,
in your head.
Sorry, say that again.
Oh, the cop in your head.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I think the quest really for me right now is like connecting to like the present, like trying to be as honest with the present as possible, and like getting as like real and honest with myself and honest reflections of myself, and not coming from a place of like being critical, but just like a real uh, survey and look and like how do we be the change that we want to see? Like this obviously, for me at least, is not the world that I want to be living in.
Yeah.
I mean, there are many, many great parts of it, but if we're going to make it different, what does that look like, and what are ways that we can participate in that?
There's a bug flying around in my house. Keeps catching my eye. Sorry. Right? Like, it's about more, like, it's just really, like, yeah. And yeah, the way that power is concentrated right now is like not in anybody's best interests.
No.
Really.
So how does it become decentralized?
Yeah. And in ways that, yeah.
But I did love reading the beginning of your book and the idea of your quest, and like being like, I think there's a magical water reserve underneath this land in the Nevada salt flats, and I'm gonna go out there now. And I was like, I'll go with you.
Yeah, you did.
No, but I was like, as I was rereading it today, I was like,
Yeah.
let's go do that now. Like,
Right?
next summer, find 2 weeks off and go.
Yes. Something. There's got to be something.
Yeah. Are you having any quests right now?
This is a journey to the center of myself, really. Just trying to kind of think more clearly about, kind of being a good person and being a good mom, and what that means. I get, yeah, which is like a ongoing quest. There's nothing new per se, but yeah, just thinking about how to be, like, I guess, like, given like constraints and like various responsibilities that I have, like just trying to, like, I guess it's like a not trying to do everything, not trying to fix everything, not trying to get um like feel defeated by the fact that I can't do everything and fix everything, and there's not going to probably be like a magic wand or magic river that solves all my problems and all the world's problems, but just still trying to like figure out what I can do, even, because just because I can't do everything doesn't mean I shouldn't do anything, and just trying to be realistic. I don't know. And I guess I just joined the People's Party, at the People's Party. It's like a new political party. It's a new political party. I'm still learning more about it, but it seems to be like it's got its heart in the right place, at least relative to the two major parties. I think that it would be nice to feel like galvanized in terms of like that kind of change making, I guess, like, but I don't know. Politics is very disillusioning, but it would be nice to,
It is the way that things work.
I wish that there was more opportunities for people to get involved on like on a meaningful level, on like a small scale, like community politics.
Yeah.
But,
That too. One of the things I've been thinking about a lot, like, what does it mean to not operate from fear?
definitely.
That's like a big meditation that I'm working on right now.
Yeah,
or
it's
just
not
have in the back of the mind.
Yeah, it's so hard. And like it's also nonlinear, you know what I mean? Like some days are good, some days are bad. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I like saw in the way that you're thinking about your stuff that I love. I love thinking about loops. I find that I just finished a journal of 7 years. So many loops.
Wow.
So many loops.
What a gift to yourself. Like,
Yeah.
have that to look. I find it so trippy to look back on stuff and be like, oh, I was right, or I was wrong, or I was.
Or I did that so many
Little did I
times
know.
over and
Yeah.
over and over and over. Yeah.
Okay. I just have like one or two more questions.
Okay.
What do you know, think about Jubilee?
What do I know? Think about Jubilee.
Mhm.
This might not be a very good question for me.
Okay.
Because what I know about it is just what I've heard you say, that it like
Okay.
comes from Christian space and it is a forgiving of debts or wrongdoings. Which to me sounds really great. I'd like to participate in that.
Right? I mean, may as well.
Mm-hmm.
What and do you want to say any more about what kind of like movements you're into these days, or your ideas about the kind of work we need to do to build a better and more beautiful and more true world?
I mean, I think like the biggest movements that have happened in my lifetime are the Occupy and the Black Lives Matter movement for Black Lives.
Mhm.
And I think watching a lot of the ethos of Occupy, like um, keep freezing, but watching the ethos of Occupy like become like seeds for organizing or ways of thinking that at the time, because that was the year that I moved here, was when Occupy was happening. I moved here
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
didn't participate as much. I'm my like actively participation, I guess, is more through like conversations around these different
Right.
ideas and less
Mhm.
of like, I mean, I've attended a few of the protests or like we'll follow it on the different like apps or like people who are following them are like reporting on them like on the ground. But yeah, it's more so in like conversations around the ideas. But yeah, I mean, I am encouraged that these movements are building. The ideas that started in Occupy are building and other different types of movement spaces. I'm encouraged that more people are engaged in the Black Lives Matter movement and actually see it as uh, like necessary
Mhm.
and are not like I feel like for a long time it was like, why is that happening? Or there was like the
Right.
counter of all these other lives matter. And I'm really glad that there's a greater majority that has moved through those conversations.
Right.
And it's like there's a larger awareness towards the importance and urgency of these conversations and like building equity and the fact that it really isn't there yet. And
Right. Leveling the
we're
field.
and that we're excavating a history that really has not been excavated in a real honest way
Right.
because a decolonization process of decolonization in our work and just like also building a vocabulary around that too on a greater populist level I think is very important. So vocabulary awareness, listening as much as possible, listening to other allies, listening to um, people of color, listening to POC, listening to people on all forms of a gender expression, sexuality expression, just like
Right.
really trying to show up and understand like where the imbalances are and try
Right.
to like lend support and spaces where can help uh, elevate those voices.
Right. The unheard,
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah,
underrepresented.
elevate those voices and support spaces that create greater equity.
Are you
Yeah.
still in touch with the recess people?
A little bit here and there. I see Allison every now and then. But what they've been able to do with their space in Brooklyn has been amazing.
Yeah.
Their shift in their programming has been really crucial, and they've definitely been a leader, I think, for arts organizations in a way, where many spaces right now, like especially larger institutions, are just really floundering.
Fumbling
and really showing their real asses out, But I think that spaces like Recess have been a good I mean, it's just like the people who are engaged in the work, you don't see them on the soapboxes. The people who need to have validation that they are engaged in the work are the ones that are like, we're doing so good. Look at all, it's like, it's not what it looks like. It's not what it looks like. It's responding to, how do you adapt? What does it look like in your organization? How are you changing your leadership? It's one thing to have diversity on your staff, but do you have diversity in your leadership? Yeah. So
it's important to, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, those are some of the things that are but also like majorly not forgetting the fact that like this is all dependent. Anything that we do is dependent on our relationship with our planet and our environment. And I'm not as engaged in a lot of the policy as much as I'd like to be, but I do think like an awareness and like keeping that in the front of our mind, like that's the thing that matters the most, is like, how are we going to have a legacy? How are we going to do work that, like, one of the phrases that I'm reading in Adrian's book is, how are we going to do work that like our ancestors can build on,
right?
And be proud of, and then also build on it, and so how do you be in right relationship to these spaces, to these movements,
into the future?
Also, shout out to Octavia Butler. Read her Parables of the Sower at the beginning of the pandemic. It was the first time I read her work, and blew my mind, and has been really like that work, that text, the people doing work around that work, Adrian's one of them, has been a place for me to like revisit anytime I get feeling like I can't find a tangible way to like focus my attention or energy. Like it just feels like too much. Like those are places that I can come back and revisit and be like, okay, these are systems of seeing or believing that are not ways of like putting blinders on, but it's ways of like being present in this world, not getting too scared about it, but like being able to like find movement and hope and community. Yeah,
it's important to have those kind of touch, like a worry stone that you keep in your pocket.
Oh, I definitely have some worry stuff. Lots of good stuff. Dig on the rocks.
Well, do you have any more questions for me, Elizabeth?
Let me look at my questions. You talked about time. I guess maybe like, why the third edition? What's different in this edition for you? What was your motivation for doing another round?
Yeah, well, I guess when I put out the first edition, I knew the story wasn't finished. And also the second edition I put out in February of this year, which I also knew wasn't finished and kind of ended at an even more kind of ambiguous place. And I don't know, it just felt like, I guess whenever I do any kind of like art thing, a lot of times it's in response to like a friend asking me to, and then it can kind of just be done when the deadline is. But in terms of this kind of like open-ended project, I kind of just wanted to get it to a place where it felt like I could move on, I guess. Like I didn't
So in each edition, how has it changed in each of your editions?
The story mostly. I mean, so the story,
which is the interesting thing thinking about editions, because that's like something that I've been grappling with.
Uh-huh.
Like one of the like jokes is like, we hate additions. Like, don't tell anybody.
Okay.
But they're complicated. They're
Yeah.
complicated to keep track of. And
Hmm.
usually the additions, in the sense that I know them,
Hmm.
are duplicates of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the way
No.
you're describing this thing is what I would call a unique.
Oh, okay. Well, each
Once
is
there's
unique.
changes, there's unique. Yeah.
Yes, each is unique, but there's copies of each. So, like the first round went out last August, and I finished that. It was a printout of the story as it existed last August, and then I kept working on it because I wanted to go somewhere with it. I didn't exactly know, but I wanted to keep being in that story, and I both like went back and like edited and like added or deleted things from the beginning of the story and added on more um, quests, more stuff, more adventures towards the end, like onto the end. And the third edition or the third unique copy. um,
I like to play with language. I mean, that's such a large part of the work too.
yeah, so like the third one is kind of, I feel like the story, there's no resolution, but it came to kind of a stopping point where I think that like it feels like it closed. Like a lot of what I was trying to do with the story was to like reject the hero's journey, like framing, or, like the arc that they teach you in high
Mm-hmm.
school, you know, like a beginning, a problem, a rising action, a falling action, or whatever.
Joseph Campbell.
Yeah, which, whatever, but
Yeah.
I'm
So
not.
how, if that shape is an arc, how would you describe the shape of how you landed?
Um, I guess kind of like a ribbon diagram,
Cool.
which is like a protein diagram. There's this which I found out after. So I found a ribbon diagram on Wikipedia in probably back in like 2014, 2015. It's just like a visual depiction of like the way that proteins entangle with each other. And I just thought it was really beautiful. And I like found it on Wikimedia Commons and like printed it out on some like Christmas card that I made for my coworkers. But I've been kind of obsessed with them ever since. And I guess it's the work of I think her name is Jane Richardson, is the woman who invented them. Or wait, what do they call ribbon diagram? Sorry, I'm looking it up.
I'm gonna look it up too.
Ribbon diagram. Jane Richardson, yeah, Janus Richardson. So I'll send you this article about her, this writing. She's still alive. She's a scientist who's actually trained as a philosopher in
This is so beautiful.
yeah.
This is also like how the lanyard looks around the braided wire.
A little bit, right?
Yeah.
But she made a lot of the first ones that they're all handmade, like the original
Wow.
ones. I think she should get an art show. That's I was I want to
This
reach
is
out to her
really
and be like,
cool.
have you ever shown these as art? Because they're art, you know.
Yeah, they're really cool.
But
Um,
but yeah,
can
that's
you
the shape.
talk a little bit about the element of like the wearability of these pieces and their reality as objects? That also like ties into another question I have, which is like talking about visual language and the significance of that in this work and your relationship to each of these titles, which furthers the idea of their uniqueness and their addition.
Yeah. They're definitely bespoke, right? So I guess the idea of what they would look like I knew I wanted them to be customized copies, but I didn't really understand how. And I just remember I was having like some grumpy day and I just like did some kind of like stretchy dance on my front porch out of like kind of frustration. And it was after I did the stretchy dance that the idea came to me. So it, I was trying to play with the idea of book jackets, like a desk cover on a book. But I was like, I want it to be more femme. So there, that's kind of so the idea of kind of like the structure of the hanging wire. Also, I had like encountered like the metallic parts of the of like what I use like in the like I work in a mechanic shop at a tree farm right now. I don't know if you knew that, but that's where I work right now. And so like I like brush up against all these like weird like auto parts and like I see them and like, like I'm like, oh, that would be cool to use it for this, or like, oh, this looks like an earring, or so yeah, it was kind of both coming from these encounters with different like materials and then kind of just this idea of wanting to make book jackets and more femme. And then I like the idea of them like both like being able to be hung, like they're strung on their own volition. And then like if I imagine people like carrying them around with them. And, like also you could like if you wanted to, like you could pull the zinevella out of it and like put your own book into it if you ever wanted to. I don't know. So I guess in that way it's like a Kindle.
Uh-huh. Yeah. An analog Kindle
The
jacket,
analog
but
Kindle jacket book, wearable.
very fashionable.
Yes, and like
Very cool.
the handle, the words on the handles is definitely like homage to Candy River bracelets. Like I
Yeah,
don't know if you ever made them,
yeah.
but like back when I was in college and going to raves, like that's what we did during the week. Probably I was probably way more into it than my friends. But I'm like, let's make candy bracelets for like
Yeah,
next.
you did have a very good collection. You usually wore a really good collection. Like I
Yes,
remember sometimes seeing you like bracelets
right.
up to here.
Exactly. Well, I mean, they were like my
It was cute.
security bracelets or
Yeah.
whatever. But and like, I started going to raves in Nebraska in like 1999. So it was like Midwest vibes, which was a little less
Hmm.
jaded. I feel like Oregon, everybody was like, there's more of this, like, there's more cultural capital and being like over it or like too cool for that. Whereas like in Nebraska, people are like, let's do this. Like, please be here with me. And
More
like,
earnest,
I can't
Midwest
do that.
earnestness.
Oh my God. And like, I was just really there for it. I was just like, yes,
I love
yes.
that.
But so my favorite candy bracelets were the ones with words on them, you know? So, so basically what I would do is just like pour out like a limited amount of letter beads and kind of see what I could make from them. And usually I would do it like for the night. So I'd like pour them out and like pull out 8 words or whatever, and pair them up.
And then make that your bracelet.
And then,
Other bracelets.
well, for the zine bellas, but
Oh, yeah.
for the candy bracelets, it was a little bit less ritualistic, you know. I would just kind of like dig through, but like I feel like what I learned from that is like if you just dig through for all the good letters and like make the words you want to, you just have a bunch of like J's and X's left over. So, which are also good. But,
Yeah. 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 I very much value like the authenticity of your interests and inspirations, and how you weave them all together in such like a really beautiful and compelling way. Like seeing like the different repetition of like your interest in like making like words, like how words become your medium, and then how that's like
mm-hmm.
connected to this culture that you had at a very young age, and then that being connected to the actual physical object medium that you're building to, and watching these words that you've made in the story like travel through the community, and how you've really kind of orchestrated how it exists in the world in this way of
Mm-hmm.
like has been as much of the medium as the work is itself, is like the idea of how it lives on. There's as much of the piece as it is. Yeah. the different layers. It's really beautiful.
I like giving things to people. And I think that that's also what's like helpful and like motivates me like to like keep making in these times is like I feel like I'm like making them for my friends, you know.
Yeah, but it also in a way I see it as your way of like folding the medium into the content into the medium again, like these loops as well. Like you're building the story that's on the inside and the outside. Like would you ever see another story like built off of some of the characters that are now generated from people that are now caretakers of these works?
I mean, I just hope, yeah, I mean, as long as it's done in good spirits, you know what I mean? Like that's what I hope it will, yeah, like live on in its own way for sure and like intermingle.
Yeah. They're really special. They're really, really special. And I'm so grateful to be a caretaker. Yeah.
I love you.
I love you too.
Is there anything else you want to talk about right now?
I think we covered it. I guess one of my questions was, how did your bedtime story go?
You know, I wasn't able to do it. My dad had a stroke last like a week ago, like the Thursday before, which my mom was supposed to take Samimi camping, and so I didn't really get as much time to read it. I'm still hoping I'll still be able to do it, but
maybe a later time.
Yeah. So what I was able to do is I did a chance reading from the 20 copies that I have with me now, and so I read read a passage randomly chose a passage from each copy and read that out loud instead because it was shorter. But I'll do it.
Sorry about your dad.
He's
I'm
okay.
really sorry to hear that. Okay. Good.
But
a future time.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well,
those are my questions. I mean, I have one question for you, but it's off the record. So maybe we end this live stream and I ask you afterwards.
Okay. Sounds good. I'm going to end the broadcast now.
Bye.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you.